You just can't get the idea of what it's all about and how much magic there is in swim run until you actually get out there on the course and you realize, holy shit, this stuff is awesome.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I am Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 18 of the show.
Of the Low Tide Boyz show, featuring...
Of our show.
What are we going to call him? Endurance man?
Well...
Mr. XTERRA himself?
He's Mr. XTERRA. He's also Mr. Low Tide Boy.
Mr. Low Tide Boy 2020.
You'll find out about that later in the show.
No spoilers.
But we have the one and only Marcus Barton.
He joins us from Charlotte, and we had a great chat with him. He does so many... Admittedly, I think that you and I do some pretty crazy adventures in terms of, like, races that seem crazy and stuff. This guy takes the cake on that stuff.
I think he's just set up. He's like at an expert level. We're still in the low levels, working our way up, and
we're in the rookie ball leagues.
It was awesome. It was great to chat with him. It was also great to chat with someone who obviously he loves the sport of swim run.
He might be, he does love it.
I think he even loves it more than me.
I don't know about that. Equal.
Okay,
it's all equal.
All right,
we all love it 100. We all stand it, and Marcus might be the most, as far as U.S. athletes, he might have done the most swim run races that I know of. Yeah. 25, 26 swim runs. That's a lot.
25. I think Catalina was 25.
That's very impressive. So we won't get too far into it, but you're in for a heck of a show. Some really cool endurance stories. Hear Marcus's background, how he got into swim run, and all that jazz.
Oh, he has multiple partners for racing.
Racing partners.
Multiple racing partners.
And his Mr. XTERRA centerfold. But we don't want to spoil that. First, we have our shout-outs for the week. We want to give a big shout-out to a fellow fellow Nevada resident. Nevadan. Bruno.
Yeah.
Bruno has been great, giving us some feedback, saying that he likes the show and stuff. So we always just kind of want to highlight some of our fans that interact with us throughout. So if you're dying to hear your name, drop us some comments.
Right.
Buy a shirt, whatever you want to do to get our attention.
I mean, there is one guaranteed way.
Yeah. Patreon.
I mean, we'll have you be a guest on the show, man.
Yeah. And so we also wanted to announce, I guess.
Yeah.
Because of everybody's feedback, listener feedback, we are going to start releasing bonus content. So it's going to be still in your same Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to it. It will just come out as a bonus episode, and these are going to be primarily focused on gear reviews.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's something we get a lot of questions about. Mm-hmm. We have our own questions about it. So we will be reviewing things that we think people want reviewed on. But by no means does that mean if you want to tell us of something you want us to review, or maybe there's something that we've used that you want to know more about, we're going to do that. We're going to be going through a lot of our own. We're planning to do a review of the Arc Keel pool buoy, which we both think is the greatest pool buoy on the planet. We have
shoes.
We have shoes. We have socks. We're going to do some wetsuit stuff. And our
paddles.
Are we going to say it? What our first review is going to be?
Sure, let's say it.
So our first review is going to be the Blue 70 Alliance swim run specific wetsuit. The folks at Blue 70 were awesome enough to send us a couple suits to try out. We used them in open water. We trained in them, a bunch of times, and
we have some thoughts.
We have some thoughts, and we're going to share them with them. In addition, Blue 70 was stoked that we were doing that, so they authorized a discount. So,
Chick-ching.
Anybody who wants anything from Blue 70, just use the code SWIMRUN, and you get 20% off. Simple as that.
Yeah, so that does a few things. That shows Blue 70 that, hey, you heard about this on the Low Tide Boyz. You can order their suit, 20% off, so a pretty bitchin' discount. And, yeah, it's a good solid suit. But we'll leave a more detailed review in the bonus episode.
A bunch of details. So stay tuned for that. That should be coming out pretty soon.
Cool. And then how has our training been going? I alluded to a birthday endurance activity. Chris sort of had his own share your own endurance activity.
Do you want me to share it right now?
Yeah.
Well, for a little while, I don't know. I think I've been in a little bit of a funk. Like I've been training a ton the last month and a half. Like more training than I've done since before children, which has been great. And it's been sort of a mental health thing or whatever. But I've still kind of been down in the dumps a little bit with everything. So I just kind of wanted to throw out just some weird endurance antics. So so on Monday, I was gonna run a marathon. Just a really long out and back in Novato. And that didn't work out because my daughter got up like 4 times to have to go pee for some reason. So no sleep, no marathon. And then, decided I'd do it on Friday. Got up at 4:20, was out the door at 4:40. And
got it done?
Got it done. It was pretty steady.
Were you pretty fried after?
I was actually okay. I think the hard part was as soon as it was over, I got home, took a shower, and then my wife had like 3 conference calls back to back. So I had to like cook breakfast for everybody, change diapers. I was straight on Mr. Mom. So
there was no like just veg out on the couch and just let your body kind of try to put itself to bed.
I mean, once that happened, I mean, there was a point where this is great parenting on my part. My daughter was watching Frozen 2.
Good
my
movie.
son Javi's on my lap, and I'm in the Normatec boots, hoping that nobody needs anything because I'm not planning on moving. So I ended up being in the boots. It was like 30 minutes here, 22 minutes there, but I managed to get some decent time in Normatec boots, which are amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And on my birthday, actually, on Strava drew out a little loop around my neighborhood that was going to be a half mile. And so I turned 33. And so I said, I'll do 33 laps. Because over the years, I think I've done my fair share of stupid birthday things. Like one time I made
hundreds.
I made Chris do 100 hundreds in the pool with me. And then other times run crazy amounts. But anyway, so we started doing this. I set a little table up outside my house, and my wife and kids like cheered me on as I was running. And then about 10 laps in, 10 laps in, Chris came by. He rode on his bike, very socially distant, and you did probably 10 more laps with me.
It was
probably
a while.
Another hour. Yeah,
it was a while. Like I was surprised when I got home. I was like, man, I was just doing loops for a long time.
Yeah. What did I didn't even see your Strava. Was it all crazy looking?
It just looked. I mean, it was burning
just
a
like,
deep hole.
Just super thick red marks. Yeah. And so I ended up getting that done. And I miscalculated a little bit, so what was going to be a 16.5 mile run ended up being 21 miles. And I'll just say I'm not in shape to be running 21 miles, especially on pavement.
I would say physical shape, but also just like mentally.
I mean, that
was a tough route.
I got broke. I got broke for sure. But I got it done, and then I came in and I was like KO'd. Well, I was like, "Do you need to sit down?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just need to like sit down." And not, but of course my kids started using me as a jungle gym.
That's always how it works. Yeah, and I showed up later and just dropped off the Normatec boots for you.
Yeah, that was nice. I did appreciate that, and I put some time in those, and maybe we'll review those.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've gone on long enough, and this is already a long episode, so we should really wind this thing up. So enjoy the episode with Swimrun journeyman Marcus Barton.
Yeah. This is a great one.
Today's guest is Marcus Barton, a swim runner from Charlotte, North Carolina, who in 2007 first started getting into endurance racing when he started racing triathlons. And his first triathlon was actually an XTERRA. He instantly became hooked on the off-road XTERRA type races, and he became XTERRA Ambassador for 7 years. And in 2016, he was honored as Mr. XTERRA, which we're very curious to hear more about later. In 2014, one of his XTERRA racing buddies, Dan Kimball, started talking to him about the crazy sport of Ötillö and this race that he saw online. So they started training for that race in 2015, and his first swim run was July of 2015, where they raced the Swimrun Rockman, and they were the 4th place men's team. They went on to race the Ötillö, I assume the World Championship that year, finishing in the top 25 men's teams, which is very impressive. Since then, he's raced a ton of swim runs. I think some of the most that I've ever heard, what was it, 12, 18, anyway, up into the 10 plus. Race Catalina this year with us. That was his 25th swimrun race. There we go. Changing up partners as he goes, but the results are usually in the top of the mixed or the men's categories, which is a very impressive result. In 2019, he was one of the top, or his team earned the top-ranked team title in 2019 US Swimrun Rankings. Again, very impressive. He also enjoys doing adventure races, off-road triathlons, and endurance trail runs. You can follow along in his blog and his YouTube channel, which we stumbled across looking for swimrun wetsuit videos, speedylizard.com, and that's his social media handles throughout. He's also the 3-time national champion for age group off-road triathlon. No big deal. But anyway, welcome to the show, Marcus.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. You have your dinner, and we were just talking about that we have the nice weather, and all I could think about is how nice it would be hopping into a pool to do some lap swimming right now.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
It is not possible. It is not possible.
It's not possible.
But we heard a little bit about your story about how you were first introduced to swimrun. I guess sort of give us the lowdown on where you first heard of swimrun, because you have a pretty impressive, I'm going to call it non-traditional type background, meaning you didn't come from racing road triathlons and Ironmans. Not saying you haven't done those, but that wasn't your sort of upbringing in the endurance world.
Yep, I've done a handful of the Olympic sprint road tries, and I even did Augusta 70.3, but it just doesn't have the draw like the dirt does, like the off-road, the woods. I mean, that's really the draw. I started off in XTERRA. I was a trail runner, gym rat mainly, because I put on a lot of weight in my mid years, like a lot of people do, and so I became a gym rat, got bored with that, and started trail running. And while on a trail run, a friend of mine says, "Hey, we should do a triathlon." It's like, I don't even have a road bike, and all I've got is a mountain bike. Well, you should do it in XTERRA. It's like, XTERRA? What's that? Long story short, I started doing XTERRAs, really fell in love with them, did them all over the country, did the ITU races when they became an off-road world championship up in Penticton, Canada, did it in Spain.
Wow.
So a lot of good fun on the off-road triathlon circuit. The way I got started in swim runs, I became a off-road triathlon race director here in the area, mainly because I wanted to have a race in my backyard I could race. And so I helped another outfit create a race. And I met Dan Kimball. He came out to do an off-road duathlon that we were putting on. And he fell in love with XTERRA too. We became racing buddies, and we traveled all over and traveled to XTERRA Worlds together and traveled to Canada together and all over the places, to Spain. We shared a house in Spain to do this racing that we did. And he kind of, honestly, he became a little bored with doing the XTERRAs and started looking around for something new to do. And he came across that famous CNN article that talks about the world's toughest races, and Ötillö was one of them. So he talked a buddy of mine and his, Bjorn Erik Norman, who is originally from Norway and was living here in the States at the time, talked him into doing Ötillö in 2014. And after they did it in 2014, he wanted to go back. He wanted to go back in 2015 and do it again, but our friend Bjorn didn't want to. He's like, all right, I've done that one, checked it off the list. He says, but what I do want to do is Rockman in July. So my buddy Dan signed up for Rockman in July and then asked me to do Ötillö with him in September of 2015.
The World Championship, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so I told him, give me some time to think about it, because I looked at it and I watched the videos and I looked at what it entailed with the 41, 42 miles of running and the 26 islands, and I was like, God, this is more than I've ever even dreamed of doing.
It's such a mind fuck that, like, when you explain it to people, it's like running 200 miles or something. You're like, wait, hold on. So what's actually happening?
And I think that's you have a very, very stout endurance resume, And for
I have to appreciate the respect. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, for that to kind of spook you a little bit, I mean, I think that really goes to show how kind of amazing this sport is. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, but I'd done some wild, crazy stuff with him before, and I he's that guy. He's the guy who's willing to try anything and do anything, and I'm the guy who gets talked into doing some of it with him.
That's I'm in a similar position. Chris is the crazy guy, and I'm the go along. Like, hey, that sounds really dumb. You shouldn't do that alone. I'll do it with you.
It's like what time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had and this is back when we had to apply, and so he's like, hey, let me know. I want to put the application in, so they have time to decide. And it's like, all right, I'll do it. And so he put in the application, and then. It wasn't long thereafter that. I don't remember the exact timing, but they accepted us on merit. And so we decided that we'd go do it.
So I have a question about that, though, before we fast forward. Was your application, did it just say, hey, I'm Mr. XTERRA? And that's it?
No, because I hadn't gotten it by that point. 2016.
Right. Gotcha.
So you how many swim runs have you done up until this point, or you haven't done any?
Zero.
So your first swim run was the World Championship. That's
no. So that's the real funny part of the story. So this is in late 2014 that I agreed to do it with him, and then so fast forward into the springtime of 2015. That's the bulk of my XTERRA racing. It's April, May, June, July ish. That's the bulk of my races. With the Eastern, at the time it was called the East Championship race, being in May. Mm-hmm. So he approaches me. I just finished that championship race and was getting ready to do XTERRA Knoxville in June. And he comes to me and he says, hey, I got a favor to ask. I was like, uh-oh, here we go. He says, Bjorn and I are signed up to do Rockman in July. I said, yeah. He goes, well, Bjorn just hurt his knee in a pickup game of soccer.
Oh.
Will you go do Rockman with me? And I said, what? Like, man, you're talking about 22, 23 miles of running, 3.5-ish miles of swimming, and 8,000 feet of climbing.
Yeah.
Oof.
And I haven't ran anything. I've been training for my longest run being a 10K.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are you serious? We've got a month to get ready. And he says, listen, if you don't go, I'm going to lose my money that I've already put into it because I can't find anybody else.
Yeah.
He's like, just get there. The entry's paid for. I've already got the hotel set up. It's paid for.
Okay.
All you got to do is just get there.
Okay,
Norway. Let's do it.
Just find yourself in Norway.
So I literally, I hung up the bike and we started training, and he put me through the ringer. And so we went to that race and had a blast. I had no idea, like it's like everything to everybody else. Like until you actually experience it, you can watch all the videos, you can listen to your buddy who's done it already, but you just can't get the idea of what it's all about and how much magic there is in swim run until you actually get out there on the course and you realize, holy shit, this stuff is awesome.
I so agree with that. I so agree with that. But I feel like, yes, any event you go to, people should just do it. They're going to feel that juice, right? But Rockman, that's like the Council of Warlocks if we're talking about magic. Like this is, that race just looks
crazy.
Probably next to the World Championship, that race is the most ridiculous one.
Is that the one that Thor runs?
Views and everything. Pardon?
Say again?
Is that the one that Thor is the RDF?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
That's intimidating in its own right. Just the race director's name is Thor.
Yeah.
I'm scared already. He's a
that
nice guy, though. Thor's a
even,
very nice guy.
He is. I've become good friends with him, and he's talked me into trying. He's tried to talk me into. He hasn't yet. He's tried to talk me into some of these other adventures too, like some of the cross country skiing races that they do in Norway, and it's crazy. 50, 60 kilometer kind of races. Like, no, not yet, Thor. Like, there's no snow in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay. So now back to Rockman. So you get to Norway, you do this race, probably have all the same. I mean, you have an experienced partner, so you have some idea about tethers and things like that. But you go through this, and what's going through your head during this process? Were you, like, how early since the race started where you're like, okay, this is awesome, I'm hooked?
You know, I was probably hooked before we raced. And we, again, hats off to Dan, because he put me through the ringer, but he not only put me through the ringer, but he taught me a lot. Like, we thoroughly tested tethering, we thoroughly tested gear and equipment, and I was just this guy like, okay, whatever you say. He would show up like, all right, let's do our booties like this. Okay. All right, let's go do this. Like, one of the sessions that we did leading into it is we went to the pool, and we were good enough patrons of the pool, and they knew us well enough that they allowed us to use like a side door to the pool so we could do a brick session in and out of the pool. And we did 10 by 1,000. No. Yes. 10 by 1,000 and 10 by 2 mile. So it was 1,000 yards,
alternating,
run 2 miles, 1,000 yards, run 2 miles, alternating.
That's a big day.
Yeah, that's it's a stout.
Huge. It was
a stout day.
10,000 yards and 20 miles of running.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But inside that workout, he had specific intervals that we were trying to hit and things. So it wasn't just going out and doing like a long swim at, you know, an easy pace.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely a workout.
Wow.
So
there were some other days leading into Ötillö where he threw in some wild, crazy workouts like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's a spicy workout. I didn't math it up in my head about the 2 times 10 until you said 10K of swimming, and I'm like, ooh, my shoulders start to burn a little bit.
So what you're saying about Rockman, though, by the time we got there, I'd already kind of had an idea about it. I was already kind of hooked by the concept of it. But once I was in the race, I think it was the minute we jumped off that ferry into the fjord, it was like right dead on. And I probably busted my ass 6 or 8 times from just taking my mind off the trail and looking at the scenery.
Yeah.
Just, wow, look at that mountain over there, and bam, I'm on my face.
Like, God, that's dangerous crazy on that race, because you can fall off a cliff like 400 feet or something, or meters, you know.
Yeah. 100 meters?
It's 1,800 feet, whatever that is in meters.
Yeah, no.
I don't.
Straight down.
Yeah. I'm not even going to try on
awesome.
That one. So you weren't very green. I mean, besides it being your first race, you sound like you had a really, really solid partner that you taught you up, learned you up pretty quickly about all things swim run. And then so that was in the spring, summer-ish. So you had another 4 to 6 months before the World Championship.
Yeah, which was beautiful that it worked out that way, because going into Ötillö, it was like, all right, now I know kind of what to expect.
Right.
Like I kind of get it. You know, I've been through a race. I see the importance of the gear. I see the importance of the training that we were going through, and we continued to train what I considered pretty hard, and you know, obviously fitting it in with family and work and as best we could. But I think we did all right.
Yeah.
So
since that Rockman race, Catalina, you said was your 25th swim run.
Yep. So I've
impressive.
done Rockman twice, and I've done pretty much every one of the races in the U.S. with the exception of what's the one out west? Orcas Island.
Orcas Island, yeah.
Yep. I was hoping to get that one in this year.
Same.
So are we.
So hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah.
And there are about 4 other people we talked to. It's on their list as well, which I think it feels that a lot of the North America races are fall time, which is sort of past your triathlon season, if you want to put it that way, I guess. So I'm hoping, we're hoping that something pops up. So let's do. We need to know about the Mr. XTERRA thing. So tell us about this. Was this a centerfold photo shoot that you had that you were Mr. XTERRA in summer 2017? May? Are you March or No, Mr. November. What was it?
God, no. God, no. Nobody wants to see me in a centerfold, that's for sure. No, what it is, it's an award that the XTERRA outfit gives once a year. And it can be Mr. or Miss XTERRA, and they've even given it to couples at times. So Mr. and Mrs. XTERRA as a combined couple.
Oh, nice.
And the award is kind of geared towards folks who have really kind of lived a lifestyle of XTERRA, and that means being good stewards of the sport, being good ambassadors of the sport, always being positive, good sportsmanship conduct on and off the course. And then just living the lifestyle. So what it entails, which is being outdoors and being stewards of our trails and whatnot. So that's really kind of what that's geared towards.
Yeah,
and so they give that
awesome.
every year at the national championship race.
And that one's in Hawaii, right?
Someone. No, the national championship is right outside of Ogden, Utah.
Okay,
gotcha.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like you're an incredible ambassador just generally being outside.
Yeah, I think,
I don't know what sport that
it,
is or whatever, but every
definitely.
video or post I see on your Facebook page or whatever, you got your GoPro and you're doing some crazy thing. You're bringing a new friend with you or a seasoned vet. So I just kind of wanted to kind of echo that's a real deal award that you deserved, and not some kind of like puff piece that they some political thing that they're kind of giving out to people. But well deserved.
And I'll say, I'm going to speak for Chipper.
Uh-oh.
Marcus, you get the first ever Low Tide Boyz, Mr. Low Tide Boyz
Mr.
award.
Low Tide Boy.
Yes.
Is that only because I'm wearing the shirt?
Yes,
probably, yeah.
Exactly, because you actually bought a shirt. Yeah, there'll probably be another shirt in the mail. But yeah, I mean, so echoing what Chipper said, I think one thing that I wanted to ask you about is you've been in the sport for a while, you've done all these events, but you've also used a bunch of different partners. You've done mixed teams, you've done men's teams. What's that like? Is it you trying to sort of evangelize people into the sport, be like, okay, come do this race with me? Or is it based on the course? You're like, oh, this friend of mine, she'd probably be really great at this course because it has a lot of whatever.
Or just the challenge of doing it with somebody completely different.
Yeah. So what's the story with all the partners?
So it's a little bit of both. So obviously most of the races I started off doing was with Dan. And the first time I used a different partner, because him and I gel very well together, and we've got personalities that are complementary. He's the heads down, go getter, work hard, come on, get your ass moving kind of person, and I'm like this, like, oh, look at that butterfly, and so we have a good personality. We kind of keep each other going, but it happened by accident because when I'd already been talking to Herbert Crable and Jan Kriska and those guys down at Swimrun NC, and had already been on the course. And I wanted Dan to do that race with me the first year that they had that race. And we had just done Casco Bay, and so I wanted him to do, and we did, fairly decent at Casco Bay the first year there. And so the first year for Swimrun NC, I wanted him to race that with me, but he couldn't because he was already signed up to go do, I think it was Ultra Tri Sweden, which was like a 3-day stage race triathlon in Sweden.
Yeah.
So that conflicted. And so what we instead ended up doing is I called out for one of my XTERRA racing buddies to do it with me because, like you mentioned, it's a good trail runners course. It's only 3,000-ish meters of swimming. And so, knowing that the running was more of his strength than it was the swimming, I called on Caleb Beatty and said, hey, bud, you really should go do this race with me. This is a lot of fun. You should really try this. And so he did. And so he's been my partner for Swimrun NC ever since.
Okay.
And that it fits in his XTERRA training schedule. It's a fall race, like you're saying. And so it just has really, really worked out well. That same year, I wanted to do Swimrun Virginia, which was the week prior to Swimrun NC. It may have been 2 weeks prior that year, but it was just prior to Swimrun NC. And so I asked Caleb to do that one, and he couldn't because of a wedding or something. I can't remember what it was, but he had a conflict. So I just stuck it out to my Facebook group and said, hey, I'm looking for a partner for this race. Some of you have seen my Swimrun post before, so, hit me up if you're interested. And I got hit up by a couple of different people. And I settled on Keith Schultz, who ended up doing that race with me. And Keith's a great, and that race is predominantly, there's a good mix of trail and road running and gravel running and whatnot. And it really fits his, he's an XTERRA racer as well.
Interesting.
And I actually had a hard time keeping up with him that first year on the run. So, and we did that race ever since until now they don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. Caleb and I did it this was it this past year? Yeah, this past year we did it. So I've had those three guys as kind of predominantly have been my training partners, and went to sign up for Lake James one year. I did the first year with Dan. The second year, Dan also had a conflict. So I reached out to my friends and family on Facebook and got a guy who used to swim in my master's group, Jeremy, to race that race with me. Mm-hmm. And so it was his first swim run, and we had a blast. He'd never even worn a swim run suit until the morning of the race. I brought one of my other swim run suits with me, and hilarious. He put it on, and here's a buoy, and so this is what we're doing today.
How did that guy navigate the tether? Was he okay with the tether?
No, so we didn't end up tethering for that race. Okay. I took it with me just in case, but for the most part, we stayed together. There was a couple of times, like a couple of the longer swims late in the race, where we got pulled a little bit apart and I got a little bit ahead of him, but I rolled over my back and kind of waited for him to catch up. Mm-hmm. So that worked out real well. And speaking of getting separated in the swim, that happened to me in Catalina with Jesse Colts.
Oh, really?
The girl's just so fucking fast in the water. Oh my gosh.
Some sort of dolphin or something. Yeah, we chatted with you too after the race, and she didn't seem super impressed by all the running, but I didn't hear her complain anything about the swimming.
It all makes sense now.
On our run, she kept going, I can't wait to get to the next swim. And on the swim, I'm thinking to myself, I can't wait to get back on the land. But it was, I had to be honest and transparent, I struggled in that last swim. Actually, I struggled in the last couple of swims, but that last one was the worst.
The last one was pretty bad.
My shoulders were toast. I probably wasn't doing really good form in the earlier swims and was using too much shoulder and not enough lats. And so in that last swim, my shoulders were just toast, and she pulled away from me quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we had a good race. She tethered some in the swim. We didn't tether that last swim because we didn't know if it was helping or hurting. Mm-hmm. With the way that the waves are kind of tossing us around a little bit. So we didn't tether the last swim. I tethered on some of the runs. It was the first time I've ever tethered on a run, which was kind of neat. Mm-hmm. Trying to give her, some running assistance, but it was a good race. It was a lot of fun. That was my first mixed race, which was, pretty fun experience. And she was, we were laughing the entire time. We were joking and kidding and having a great time.
That's awesome. Well, so we have to ask because, that's in its first year was the largest swim run race in the U.S. Mm-hmm. You've done a bunch of swim run races in the U.S. How does this one kind of compare? My sense of it was like the vibe was still was a swim run vibe. It just felt more European to me because there were more European people there from the races we've done in the U.S. But but despite the size, for me, I thought it was a pretty cool swim run experience. What was your take on it, since you've done international races and all the U.S. races pretty much?
Well, I've only done 2 European races, Rockman twice and Ötillö once, so I don't have a whole lot to go on from experience-wise, but I really, really love the vibe of the Ötillö branded races, and the fact that they came over here and put on the race definitely gives it that experience, and you can't get that experience anywhere else. And I that was absolutely awesome, and I think they did a great job picking swims, and I think the distances and everything was great. I loved it. The only thing that I didn't prefer, I know I'm not going to say I didn't like it because I really enjoyed the race, was that it was a lot of gravel road running, and it didn't fit. And the reason I don't like it is because this didn't fit my forte. So I'm a very technical trail runner, and if you've seen some of my videos, you see the kind of running I like to do.
I don't know if it's I don't know if you're allowed to call it a trail. It's like horizontal rock climbing or something. Like, I don't know. It's not much of a trail when I'm watching these videos.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you're running and not like bounding is what's we probably are bounding.
So you like a real?
It was a hard. Don't get me wrong. Catalina was hard as hell. It was the climbing alone was hard, right? But if you recall that one swim where you come out of swim and you're grabbing a rock and climbing up the side of the hill, that's the kind of racing I really enjoy. And if you ever get a chance to do Swimrun NC, those guys have put together a great race.
It's on our list.
It's on the list.
I mean, they're all on our list, but yeah, that one's definitely on our list.
Yeah, that one really has some pretty stunning visual photos come out. I know Herb always does a nice post on Slow Twitch about it and everything, and he's obviously a great ambassador to the sport of swimrun and everything. But yeah, just the images that come out of it, it's like, wow, this seems like a really cool spot to camp for a week and then do the race or something. Like, it seems like such a cool place.
It really is, and that's I would say that so far in the States, Swimrun NC and Casco Bay are probably my favorites. They're great. Now there's a couple races that I want to do this year that I haven't done, and that's Orcas. And I think that Orcas will kind of fit my skills a little bit better.
A lot of climbing.
Since it's a lot of climbing and a lot of trail running.
Yep.
And then I also want to try Swimrun Tennessee. I've seen pictures. I kind of talked to Tony Hammett, the race director down there, and when he was creating that race, he threw some opinions my way, and so threw some questions my way, and I kind of gave my opinions on it. So I've seen the course, but I haven't done that one yet. And I really want to do that one. And I've got the past couple of years I've done the Swimrun Lake James and Swimrun Georgia back to back because they've been on the same weekend.
Yeah.
And that was the first crazy. In 2018, Dan and I did that. Or was it 2018, Dan and I did that. We did that back to back. And that was a lot of fun doing that. And so we attempted to do it last year with Swimrun Catawba, which is here in Charlotte, and Georgia. I tried to do the back-to-backs on those, but both ended up getting canceled for thunderstorms.
Yeah, wow.
During the races.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
So technically, if you count up the ones I've finished 23 races.
Right.
Because those two races both got stopped prematurely because of lightning.
Them, yeah. That still counts as a start.
And then what did you have on the schedule? Are you still doing a lot of XTERRA, or what if someone had to put a label on you, what are you labeling yourself these days?
A swim runner, definitely. Okay. It's my focus. Yeah. I'm still doing the off-road tries. Now, with that said, XTERRA's gone through a purchase, and they're doing some rebranding, and so they've cut down on the number of XTERRA branded races in order to kind of control quality and all kinds of other things. And you can read their press release about that, but they're not doing as many XTERRAs across the country as they used to. There's a new outfit based out of Knoxville, Tennessee called Modus. And so Modus has created an off-road triathlon series that's picked up a lot of those older XTERRA races, and they're now Modus races.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, gotcha. And just if anyone doesn't know for some reason, an XTERRA race is a swim, bike, and run, but the bike is usually done on a mountain bike, and then the run is usually a trail run. So it's off-road, I guess.
Yeah, off-road tri.
Yep. Yeah, they won't let you. The rules dictate you can't use a cross bike, so it's definitely a mountain bike race.
So you have to use a mountain bike. Nice.
Yep, and then the trail run's a trail run, and they vary anywhere from 750 swim to 1500 swim. The mountain bike can be, it's hard to say what a mountain. You can't really call the mountain bike leg a distance, because this race might be flat and non-technical, and this one might be so technical you end up pushing your bike up a hill. So the bikes are usually an hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours on the bike, depending on your skill level. And then the trail runs are usually anywhere from a 5K to a 10K.
Similar to swimrun in the way that you sort of using the course that sort of nature has provided for you, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, you're not being confined to, hey, we need a 40K bike ride here.
So we have to use an alley and have people go up and down the alley 4 times to make up the mileage that we need.
Or else we're gonna get 15 emails from people who are saying the course was short. And we're not bitter triathletes or anything. It's fine. It's totally cool. So let's pretend that, July, August, things are kind of back to normal. What do you have on the books for later on this year in terms of swimrun?
Well, I'm going to be a little more optimistic than that and say that, things are going to open back up by June.
Okay.
Let's say that things are open up by June. I've got an adventure race in Uwharrie, which is right around, it's like 2 hours from Charlotte. I think it's an 18-hour race. It might be an 18-hour adventure race. Okay. I'll be part of a 4-man team at that race, and that's in mid-June. And then towards the September-ish time frame, I don't really have a whole lot in July and August. Or in July. August, I've got Swimrun Rockman, or Rockman Swimrun in Norway. And then in September, the Swimrun Georgia race didn't get canceled. It got postponed to September.
Oh, cool.
So I'm planning on racing.
Mental note. We wanted to do that one. I think we were talking to you because you had said you did some crazy weekend where you do...
where he did both, where he does Lake James and then...
On Saturday, and then you drive and do... Yeah, so that, to be honest, we were seriously considering doing that exact same thing just because that's
that's kind of the dumb shit we do.
Yeah, that's the dumb stuff that we do. Yeah. But anyway, sorry to...
It's right. It's crazy. It's fun. But it's been moved to September, and we'll be doing that one with Joe Uberwitz. That's one of the partners I haven't mentioned yet. And so Joe and I have not actually completed a swim run yet because the first race I was going to do with him was Swimrun Georgia last year.
Gotcha.
We got to the second swim and got pulled out of the water for lightning.
Wow.
Luckily, we were in the lead at the point, but he's a phenomenal racer. He's a little bit younger than me. He's 16.
I was going to say, is this the kid that you've been? So last couple weekends ago, Marcus posted on his thing that he did a 2-day swim run event, I guess, with him and what was his name again? Joe, you said?
No, the 2-day swim run event that I did was with Jonathan Story.
Okay.
But probably the previous post was Joe came up to visit. Him and his dad called. It's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? I was like, I have no plans. And it's like, well, let's do some endurance training. It's like, we don't care what, And so he brought his van fully packed with everything that we could possibly think of.
Wow.
And so he got here Friday night-ish, Friday afternoon-ish, Friday night-ish. And once we got settled in, we grabbed some pizza, and we're literally standing at the counter. We're not even seated. We're standing at the counter eating pizza. And it's like, what do you want to do tomorrow? And he goes, I don't know. It's like, well, here's our options. We could go do a swim run brick out at the Whitewater Center. We could go to Lake James and do a swim run brick up there. We could go do some mountain biking, maybe go hit up the mountain bike courses. Do what I call a twofer, where you go ride 2 different mountain bike trails. So you go ride one trail, then do 15-ish miles, and then pack up and then drive to another trail and do another 15-ish miles or whatever. I said, or we can go up to Linville Falls or the Linville Gorge and do a 22 mile loop that I have with about 5,000 feet of climbing. He goes, yeah, let's do that. Okay.
Well,
there you go.
So we started packing our bags and got them ready for the next morning. We got up at Oak Crack 30 and hit there right about sunrise. It's about a 2-hour drive, and so we hit there right about sunrise and started running and did our little 20 to 22 mile loop.
Nice.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And maybe a month before that, there was some other crazy endurance thing that was 18 hours or something that you tell us more about that. I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah, go on.
Was it the Swamp Fox Adventure Race?
Yeah, it must have been that one. Was it like a month or a month and a half ago?
A month or a month and a half ago. What did we do for 18 hours a month and a half ago?
You did it. There was a bike involved.
I think the fact that you actually can't pin down by just saying, something that was an
worrisome.
18-hour event, you're just like, can't really pin that one down. Not sure what that could be. I think that's emblematic.
Well, we did.
Of a lot.
Well, and yeah, so we did do in March. We did do the Swamp Fox Adventure Race, but I think that was just a 12-hour race.
That might have been what I was thinking about.
So that one's an adventure race, and with adventure racing, you could do it solo, or you could do a 2-man team or 3-man team. But traditional adventure racing is a 4-man team. And so we were on a 4-man team, and it was myself. Joe Urbowitz was supposed to race, but he couldn't make it because he was taking his SATs. So Caleb Beatty.
I knew I never liked those SATs, so this is another arrow in that quiver. Yes, I went back.
Right.
I went back on your Facebook right now, and March 14th, and the first sentence just says alligators. They said. So the fact that alligators are possible.
Oh, that's right. I posted that meme in your honor.
Oh, right. We even made a badass Marcus meme. Yeah. So it looks like you had a mountain bike. You have a big topo map. Yep. There's alligators and what else?
There was a canoe. Since it's a 4-man team, we had to have 2 boats. One of them was a canoe and one of them was a kayak. So we start off the race. So it's a here's your map, here's your coordinates, and they give it to you, and so you have to map the coordinates on the map using nothing but your ruler. So you map out the coordinates. So you map the checkpoints on the map, and then you have to figure out, okay, strategically, how are we going to gather all these checkpoints? And so at each checkpoint, there's a punch, and the punch is unique per checkpoint. And then you have what they call a passport, the punch card. And on that passport, you go to each checkpoint and you punch that passport with those checkpoints. The team that gathers the most checkpoints wins. And if you tie for the most checkpoints, whoever gets back the quickest wins. So there's some strategy involved in, do we gather all the checkpoints or do we get back quicker? And you never really know what place you're in because, people will choose different routes in order to get there. Some people think the roads may be faster, whereas we thought, let's go right through this swamp and it might be faster. And so we start off the race, and it starts off with a little challenge to kind of spread folks out. One team member had to go get 3 checkpoints right there in the little town, McAdenville town that we were in. And at each checkpoint, instead of a punch, there's a number and a letter, like B6. It's like bingo kind of thing.
Okay. They
come back, and those if you wrote them down correctly, those associate to a letter, and then you have to descramble the word. And it was suey, like you're calling a pig suey. Once you descramble the word, then you can take off on your boats. And so there was a checkpoint on the boats. There's only one checkpoint on the boat because of the way it ended up being. And the tide was out, so we couldn't actually get to our checkpoint, the first checkpoint. And they said, just describe what the checkpoint looks like if you can't actually get to it because it's knee deep mud and whatnot. So we didn't get the first checkpoint, unfortunately. We finally decided to just abandon it. And we went on, got on the bikes, gathered a bunch of checkpoints on the bike. There was a run about midway through the race where you lay your bike down and you go all in like a 4-ish mile run to get other checkpoints. That's where we saw the one alligator that we saw. And it was one of those where we were running along a trail and all of a sudden he was up on the bank and jumped in the water and scared the shit out of us.
Yeah.
And then so the bulk of that race was actually on the bike where you're gathering these different checkpoints. But when you get to where a checkpoint is, you generally have to like lay your bike down because it's off in the middle of a swamp. You're not going to ride your bike. So you have to lay your bike down and run down into the swamp and find this checkpoint because the checkpoints in the map will get you kind of close, and how accurate you map out those checkpoints will define how quick you get them.
Gotcha.
Because it is a race. You want to get them as quickly as possible. And there were challenges as you went along, like you could see in the video that I posted. Like there's the rope ladder that like what you see at the county fair that nobody can climb because it pivots and you fall off kind of thing. And so the checkpoints at the top of that ladder. So they would give us challenges where checkpoints are up in trees and knee deep in water in the swamp, and there's no way you can You can get them easily without getting wet or whatnot.
Sounds like a hell of a time, and
especially with your buddies.
I would encourage to go, as Marcus was walking through this, and I was listening, I was watching his video, and the visual aspect, and your GoPro skills are pretty good, and I appreciate you doing that and bringing light to this sort of thing. But hearing you talk about it, people should definitely go to your Facebook page and check it out, because you'll get a better sense of these things are like up in the tree, or it's not just on the side of the road like, oh, I got to run around this and, hit my dongle on this thing. It's like, I got to climb this tree, but I'm in knee-deep mud in a swamp, and it's wild. It is wild.
Yeah, it sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
It is so much fun.
So Marcus,
it is so much fun.
To start wrapping this up, because we don't want to take too much of your time. Bringing it back to Swimrun, I think we love the sport. This is a total love fest on the sport. But because you've done so many events, it's almost I'd love to hear sort of how would you encapsulate. What is it about the sport that you really love, and why you've basically made it the focus of your training, and you encourage people to do it, and you're a great ambassador for the sport. Again, you're Mr. Low Tide Boy, first one. Inaugural. But can you help just for our audience, for people might be hearing about your passion for it, like what is it about the sport that you found has really done something for
you? Michael Limmel says it best. It's making you one with nature. It's connecting you back to nature, and that's what I love about it. Like I mentioned towards the beginning, I've done some road races. I've stared at that white line. I've stared at the pavement. I've pounded the pavement, and it just doesn't trip my trigger and warm the cockles of my heart like being out in the middle of the woods and connecting with nature. That's the biggest aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is like, a triathlete can train alone, race alone, and it's a solo sport.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a team sport. You're out there with your teammate, and I've been out there struggling like crazy with my teammate. Caleb Beatty has literally put his hand in the middle of my back and pushed me up a hill when I was struggling during a race one time. So I've returned that favor for folks. I literally did the same exact thing with another partner. So it's that, that bonding that you have with a good friend, and experiencing the race with a partner has a merit to it that people just don't realize until they've done it. And I think that's another thing that kind of attracts me to the adventure racing, because it's kind of the same concept. You're racing as part of a team, and you're out there together, grueling through it together and experiencing it together, and then laughing and talking about it afterwards, because you get it. You went through that with that person. So connecting with nature is God, I cannot express that enough. That's a key aspect of it, but you're doing it with someone. And that, again, if you, and I've heard a lot of different people say, well, I really don't want to do this race with somebody. I'd rather just do it by myself, or I can't seem to find a partner. It's too hard for me to find a partner. And if you just put in the groundwork and find someone that you can race with, it's well worth it. It's crazy how much it's enjoyable when you do it with somebody.
I love that.
That's pretty well said. I feel like we should just end the show right now.
On that note.
Yeah. See you later. So one final sort of question that we try to get most people's commentary or thoughts on. You've obviously done a lot of swimming races, especially in the United States. And from 2015 to 2020, where we are now, the growth of swimrun in the United States has really taken off, I guess. But Chris and I, the Low Tide Boyz, feel that it's still kind of just on that brink right before it's about to kind of explode. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what do you think will really make that growth happen in the United States, in particular for swimrun?
It's right now, it's word of mouth, and you guys are helping to get the word out. And I think that there's probably some folks who haven't tried swimrun that might be listening to this right now because of a friend that told them about it. Hey, go listen to this podcast and you can hear about swimrun. So I think that we as athletes need to tell our friends about it and get our friends involved. And I've invited folks who have not swimrun before to some of the training sessions that I'm doing. And we've done group sessions where we've had new folks come out and do swim run and try swim run, even in triathlon suits. And when first time I brought Amy Carver, another friend of mine, out to try out, doing swim run, she literally stood there in the parking lot of the Whitewater Center and cut the arms and legs off of her triathlon suit.
I love it.
That's great.
So that she could try it. And so I think getting the word out is key. And I think that we, and this is my own personal opinion, not to reflect the opinion of anyone involved here, but I don't want to see this turn into triathlon.
Same.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it to where, I've heard people say, why don't you have age groups, or why don't you have an elite division, and I really feel like that is not a good direction for the sport. Just my own personal opinion. Because I feel like that it really kind of takes away from the sport itself, and it becomes hey, you can win this participation medal, trophy, whatever, for winning your age group, as opposed to what I think that they should experience is the connection with nature and racing with someone and enjoying that. And I think that's really what it's. And there's triathletes that are looking for something different. And if you turn this into triathlon with age groups and elite division and all this other kind of stuff, I think that it's just going to end up in the same thing.
Yeah,
my opinion.
I totally agree with you, and I think one of the ways that if race directors are listening to this, that you can kind of stave that off. And again, this is my opinion. This does not reflect the opinion of the Low Tide Boyz or our producers or whatever. We don't have producers.
We have a producer?
We don't have producers. Our wives.
I'm the producer. We're the...
and to me, to be honest, you got to keep it hard.
Yeah.
If you start legislating the difficulty, standardizing the distances, then it's easier for sort of the type A triathlete and the triathlon mindset to be like, all right, this is something I can understand. You really have to be okay with an aid station not being exactly where you thought it was going to be, and additional distance, less distance, whatever. And the fact that these races are hard, and actually our first guest, who's now the editor-in-chief of Triathlete Magazine, Kelly O'Mara, that was her point. It's like what she really loves about swimrun, and she's a pro triathlete, Ironman triathlete, is that
it's challenging.
It's still hard. It's welcoming.
Not that Ironman's easy, but
right.
It's like, yeah.
So I totally co-sign with that, and I think what we're trying to do with the show is the same thing you've been doing. So if anything, we're standing on your shoulders trying to amplify this from our little corner of the world here, because we think the sport is so magical, and I think that just want to thank you for being on the show, because it's like we're preaching to the choir here, but I think it's great to hear it from someone who's done way more races than us and is super experienced and still feels the same magic that we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I wholeheartely agree with you. I think I heard a previous guest, or maybe it was a conversation I was having with someone, where they said that one of the things that they thought was that they needed to make it to where it wasn't, it didn't have the label of being epic, meaning that it might be turning off some of the folks who think that it may be impossible. And I don't think that we need to remove the epic title, but I think we definitely need to let more people know that it is possible, that it is doable. It's not so epic that you can't do it. But if we try to dumb it down, like you're saying, I think that we'll lose out on that for sure.
Yeah, I believe that was the Wild Swim Run women, Mia and Fanny, who kind of said that, and that almost seemed a little bit of like a potentially like a cultural thing in Sweden of like, oh, it's really macho to do it if you're a guy. But yeah, I mean, I think swimrun's super interesting because it's super approachable, because most people can run and swim, and there's not a crazy, you don't have to buy a $2,000 bike. You literally just need shoes and goggles, and you could do it, right?
Right.
But, I think having the experience distance and then the World Series distance is probably what I think will kind of help, like having these shorter ones. I think in Catalina, and Marcus, I'm curious to hear what you think as well. A lot of people who are probably very accomplished triathletes in their own right have done maybe several Ironmans, several 70.3s. They were caught off guard at the World Series distance, they thought, oh yeah, I can do this stuff. I can run 18 miles, no problem. But the totality of it, I think, caught them off guard.
Yeah, for sure. And another point to that, I think that the Saturday races at Catalina, I knew a bunch of people that were doing those events, and like 3 teams that were racing that were in my triathlon club in the city. All 3 of those teams are coming back next year to do the World Series distance.
Yeah.
Because they got so hooked on doing the sprint or whatever the shorter course was. So, I think we're in agreement of a great strategy to grow the sport, word of mouth, tell everybody which is what Andy Hewitt puts on a shirt.
Yeah.
Tell everyone about Swimrun. But with that, Marcus, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time, and stay safe and healthy out there.
Sure thing. Hey, can I throw a shout out?
Absolutely.
Please, yeah. Oh, we didn't mean to not have that. Where, besides speedylizard.com on the internet and YouTube, where can people find more about you, Marcus? Because obviously you have a very fascinating endurance life, and people want to know about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, if you go to speedylizard.com, I've got links to my Instagram page, my Twitter page,
Perfect.
The Facebook page. So you can obviously find me on Facebook at Marcus Barton. So that's probably the best routes to get a hold of me.
And you have a great Ötillö Catalina recap video. You brought your GoPro out. I don't even know how you could even think about starting to do that. We were struggling just worrying about the first hill to climb. And Marcus is up there, recording videos and doing mid-race interviews and everything. So we'll link all this stuff in the show notes. Your videos that we have talked about, speedylizard.com. You have a lot of really good intro to swimrun type of content on your YouTube channel. You've done kind of reviews about different wetsuits and stuff. So you've been nothing but a great resource to swimrun as a sport and the whole, and thank you for all that, and again coming on the show, and we're really going to let you go this time.
Well, let's hear a shout out first.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to shout out to the race directors, because they are all swimrun athletes. They've all done swimrun races.
Yep.
They are trying to spread the sport here in the U.S. probably more than any of us by putting on these races and putting all the hard work behind them.
Yeah.
So, whether it's the Swimrun NC guys, Jeff Beckenheimer, Herbert Crable, Jan Kriska, Tony Hammett that puts on Swimrun Georgia and Swimrun Tennessee, and then you got Lars that puts on the races up there. And then all of a sudden you've got Kristen Jeno who puts on Swimrun Lake James. These folks are all working very, very hard to get the sport out there. John Stevens, Lars's right-hand man, these guys are all putting in a lot of hard work to get these races, and they put on some great events. And so I just want to thank them for giving us the races to race, because if it wasn't for them, we'd still be, we wouldn't have anything here. So I'm greatly appreciative of those guys.
That's a great point, and we'll just echo and second that shout out list. So appreciate it.
And people sign up for your local race, support your local race directors. So important.
Yep.
So Marcus, with that second goodbye, I hope it's not awkward. Thank you so much for being on the show, and man, stay safe.
All right, thanks guys. Long time listener, first time caller.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes. Or
until
run
you cross the finish line.
Or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running.
Peace.
Peace.